Good evening. Welcome to the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee of the Town of North Andover. I will read the short disclaimer because this is also we have a remote participant tonight. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via in-person and via remote means. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public meeting, please email your questions or comments prior to or during the meeting to cpcemails@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be provided to the committee before the meeting or read during the proceedings if received during or shortly before the meeting. Okay. I'd like to start by welcoming our newest member, Adam Bagney, who was just appointed on Monday night and managed to get his training done and get sworn in this morning. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you. No, just thanks for the welcome. Happy to serve. Nice to briefly meet you all here for just a moment ago, and just excited to be a part of it. So thanks.
Okay. So what I'm going to propose we do, is, if there's no objection, is we have some financial stuff, like some projects we're going to close out that we voted on before, etc. I would say that we should deal with the folks who are here first with the notice of intents, and then we can do that sort of housekeeping after, and then we can afford them the opportunity to leave if they are not thrilled to be here any longer. So. Okay. So do we just want to start with the first party? Do you guys want to go first? Okay.
Are we first on the agenda?
I don't think we have one. Applebrook Farm. Yep.
That's not us.
Oh no. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see.
We're at 44 savings.
Okay. So is Applebrook Farm here?
Actually, I can give you an overview.
Okay.
Al Manzi owns a bunch of property out in Foster Street area of North Andover. He's proposing to either subdivide or sell off approximately 10 acres of his property. Historically, it's been farmed. It's very diverse in terms of wildlife, topography, and vegetation. It's got the mosquito brook that runs through it. It's also contiguous with the Greenbelt property, which has a trail system that they plan to connect onto Mr. Manzi's property. So the benefit is open space. The alternative is that this would be subdivided into housing lots accessible off of Lancaster Road. Okay, so I know he has plot plans and subdevelopment plans developed already. He's ready to go whichever way it goes, and I'm not prepared to present those tonight. I'll recommend that he come and represent himself next time. But I just wanted to give you an overview, which is the most I can do. I really don't know much about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of history here, This came in front of us probably 7 or 8 years ago in conjunction with Essex County Greenbelt. We could not put a deal together at that time. It just fell through for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I think, yeah, we should talk to them, we should bring them back and so forth, but I think in the end, if we're serious about it, we need to partner with somebody in the Greenbelt at the logical piece, because they obviously have all the land abutting it, but, I mean, I think it's good that he's coming to us, I think that's great, but there is some history here, this is not gonna be easy to get this done, if, you know, that's the case, so.
Great, okay. And then, why don't we go next with the Stevens Library North Lawn. And can we note for the record that Ron Rudis, a committee member, is going to step off for during this deliberation because he's on the library trustees.
Just came back.
Oh, okay.
Just came back.
So Ron, you're going to drop off, and we'll text you when we're done with the library. Oh, there we go.
Just came back.
Okay. Okay.
Where would you like me here or here?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Check, is it on? Doesn't seem like it's on.
If there's a green light, you're good.
Oh, okay. Means there's no echo and feedback. It's a good job. I'm Kathleen Keenan, the library director. I want to say thank you for entertaining our latest request, and always to say thank you for all the wonderful things that you've already done for the library. The library, we believe, is really key to the community, and the support you've given over the years has really made a difference. If you've been to the library in the last few years and you've come through the historic entrance, every time you open those doors, that's thanks to the kind of support we've had from you. When I first came, those doors had probably 10 layers of paint, and when we had them cleaned, the architect working on them called and said, "Do you know that there's carving on those doors?" So the money you've supported the library has really gone to good use and is appreciated by the community, as obviously as well as the library staff and myself. Our next step is to really do something with that triangle lawn that we call the North Lawn, thanks to the architect telling us where we were on the compass. It's pretty much dead space right now. By the end of the summer, it's dead grass. It's not terribly usable for our patrons, partly because of where it's positioned on those two streets, and it's quite busy. So during COVID, we realized, of course, we wished we had more outdoor seating. It was really critical to us. We were fortunate last year we got the grant from the council here to go and use a landscape architect to put together what would be the ideal circumstances, how many things we could do with that space, that it could be used for our programming, but also passive recreation. We have lots of people who like to read and sit outside at the same time. We're able to do small programs there, and that would be the intent. So we had a meeting a few months ago with our immediate neighbors to share the plans with them, and they were very comfortable with what we were looking at. We guaranteed there were no night games, there were no floodlights. We'd probably be rolling up the sidewalk around the time we closed up the library, that it would continue to be a nice neighborhood area for them. So I've sent you the presentation that we have used with the community, with the neighbors, and the pricing that we had done by the landscape architect. So if I can answer any questions for you.
So you say you met with all the neighbors?
We invited all of the neighbors that were contiguous to us, yeah. Well, it's funny, I was told by the property department not to call them abutters because they don't actually touch the lawn. They're actually on the other side of the street. But in my mind, I consider them abutters. They were all invited. Some people let us know they weren't able to come that night. We did have 3 of the neighbors come. They had a lot of questions. They were very reassured by our answers for what we were planning to do there.
Was there any questions about the amphitheater?
There wasn't. I was prepared for a lot more hard questions to answer, and they felt that developing the area would be very nice, nice aspect to their neighborhood.
Has there been any input regarding traffic at that intersection?
We've talked a little bit about that, and one of the things that I'm a big fan of planning for safety, and so when we worked with the landscape architect, I was very particular that the visibility has to stay very low there so that, you know, traffic coming from both ways has really good visibility. So the plan may show shrubbery down there, but it will be very low, so that if you're in a Toyota Corolla as opposed to a SUV, you still have clearance and visibility to see who's coming. It is a very busy traffic area. Main Street is a traffic problem for us already because people go quite fast there. So one part of the safety aspect for me is that we will have a very low fence that goes around the two side streets, so that with children and people in that area, you're stopped when you hit the sidewalk and you're not stepping off the sidewalk and into the street. So again, we looked at the height of that fence to make sure that didn't interfere with visibility as well.
I just think this is my own opinion, but I think it might be helpful if you could maybe take some time to review this with the folks at DPW, maybe John Borghese, the town engineer, and he's got resources that could help you identify plants that would work in that situation, as well as fencing. If you could get a letter of support from our DPW, I think that would be that would shortcut any difficult questions that might come up.
Good, thank you.
So there's no entrance, the only way to get inside that area, there's no gates on the triangle. Am I seeing that right?
So it's open next to the library.
Yes.
So if you come out of the library steps on the two new walkways, our current walkways are not actually at a handicap access pitch. So one of the things when I worked with the landscape architect was to ask, can we improve a lot of those access points? So you'll be able to enter from the library, from its steps. You'll be able to enter from both sides at the top of the triangle. We did not put a gate on the Main Street side. We don't want a lot of people going in and out that side, but there is a gate near the point down where Green and Main Street meet.
See, one of the concerns that I know what the neighbors told us the last time was they were afraid that the seating and whatever was going to be used at night with the kids and that type of thing. So I was actually thinking it was a plus not having an entrance down that way, because they'd probably not want to come in and go all the way down to the point, and then, you know, it just would make it less desirable to get down there.
I was actually very concerned that when we met with the neighbors, because of the lights at night, and so we looked at low-light bollard areas as opposed to street lights. And I was surprised to have them say they wouldn't mind having more light at night to have it be a more visible area.
Right.
We do now have, when we hear there are issues, I will contact the police department, who's a great support to the library, and let them know it's time to start maybe driving by a little bit more in the later hours. So that, you know, and our signs are posted, there's no overnight parking and things like that, but sometimes people do stay. So we've talked a bit to the neighbors about that what we can do to not have it be a night spot after the library's closed.
Yeah.
How many months to construct this park?
Do you remember hearing that number, Stan?
Not long, a couple of months.
Just a couple of months?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not taking that.
It's pretty small.
Yeah.
You might sort of key it to the steps.
Yes. So the project that comes in the spring is we will be doing, rebuilding, re-engineering the historic steps. And we're fortunate the landscape architect is the architect of record for working on the steps project. So it's been very helpful for us because he's already quite familiar with the property and a lot of our requirements. So if we were able...
Before you start, will that brick area already be in there from the other project?
Only a small portion of it immediately at the base of the steps.
Okay.
So the first project that starts hopefully as soon as snow clears next April and May will be the steps and the staircases there. but we're not actually working on the two-wing pathway that goes down to the sidewalks. So that's, part of the area for us that, we know needs to be rebuilt at a pitch that's more accessible for, people who maybe have some difficulty.
So Kathleen, is this more of just an informal space for people to congregate, or do you see like a time when you'll have certain programming out there, and if so, what might that be?
Definitely programming, library programming. It's not a place where other groups, for instance, could apply to use the space to have a program. So it's definitely library town use only. And in the design, there's an area where you'll see there's the triangle, and then when you come up after the lawn, there's 3 lines, and that will actually be like an amphitheater seating, and it's designed to be both comfortable in terms of the environment and a lot of grass, a lot of green space, but also pitch so it works. So outdoor story times, for instance. We've been doing them over the years. A lot of our summer programming, we try to take the kids back outside. Sometimes we're fortunate and we go to Patriots Memorial Park, which is a very beautiful space, but it's not really designed for some of the things we would do. So that's where we would like to see the specific planned activities happening, especially the younger children. And that's where the low fencing again comes in to make sure that when you have a group of people there, that it's contained but not confining.
Yeah, I can see a lot of story time and a lot of Pokemon cards being traded on that
Yes.
grass.
A couple of things. What, how much money are we talking about here?
Again, because we worked with the landscape architect, I asked for a formal cost estimate, and that's one of the sheets that attached here. I have to say I haven't done any patio paving, so it was sticker shock when he handed me the price, which is $883,000. I did go look at the bottom line again this morning, and I see that he's put in like a 20-cent per contingency. He's made an allowance for lapse in time, so we apply now. It gets voted in May, but we might not do this project until the spring of 2025, and we know construction costs will be different. So he's really put a long-range look at it.
So, I'll have to, if you said 880,000, I'm like stunned, falling off my chair stunned. I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult, but that's
No.
like an order of magnitude more than I thought something like this would cost. Something doesn't feel right about this. I mean, this is not that much space, and if anybody were doing it at their own house, they would never pay anywhere close to this much money.
There's a lot of earthwork, so part of it is having to regrade spaces, grade some, build some spaces up. The paving work, I understand, is actually quite expensive, and then the materials. One of the things that we'd hope to do was maybe be able to find donations that would support part of it, but at this stage, we need to talk about the full project and what we could do, and then if we're able to help cover the cost, we would certainly do that.
It's a very detailed budget that's been put together.
I mean, this is a lot more money than any project we've ever done at the library. I mean, collectively, but more. My recollection, and it's a little bit hazy, but didn't we fund a project on the walkway, like back about close to 12, 15 years ago, because it was uneven?
Yes. And I will say that the walkway that we've replaced is much better. So the walkway is a semicircle that comes to the historic entrance, and the bricks all tilted sideways. So if you've ever seen a washboard where, you've got a ridge and you're going like this, we had to take up those bricks, and as the bricks tilt, all of the edges were broken and worn off. So we couldn't just take the brick back out and put it back in a flat position, so it was removed and constructed. And when we constructed it this time, we put down a concrete pad, and the bricks sit on that, so they can't tilt like that again. But yes.
So, but the walkway's not part of this, is it?
It is part of this because we rebuilt the walkway as it was pitched, and that's where part of the design here is to look at the pitch. We've been told it's not the right pitch, actually.
So you would basically have to redo it. I mean, I'm not, again, you learn in hindsight, so it's, I'm not sort of pointing the finger, but, I
Yep.
mean, effectively, what we spent the money on would be wasted.
It's been helpful for, I think, 10 years or more, so it's been a good improvement.
Yeah.
If we had a crystal ball and we thought we would actually go in this direction with more formal development.
Yeah.
Probably would have thought differently at the time.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Has there ever been a study done at the library of what needs to be done for the library? You know, I know we did the air conditioning, right? And we've done different projects, but has anybody ever done anything to say, hey, in the future, you really need to do the windows, or you need to do this or that? Is there any, you know, we've done it with the Historical Society, we've done it with the Stevens. I'm just curious if anything like that has ever been done with the library. And then, so that, you know, if we are looking to spend
This
all
kind
this
of money.
and then we come back next year and say, the roof's gone. You know,
So-
and. I'm using it as an example, you know.
Yes. So the good news is, I can tell you, I came to the library in 2008 as the assistant director, and within 2 years, we actually replaced the majority of the windows in the building, so they shouldn't come up for a long time.
Well, I'm just saying that would there be a big project coming that we should be looking at?
I don't think that there's a
furnaces, you know,
big
that type
project
of-
that would be funded under either historic preservation, and certainly this would be the only one that's really any kind of outdoor space. The town has been very supportive. They did replace the rooftop units for the AC. They have funded, and we've replaced the majority of the roof, which is flat. Over time, you've supported fixing the walkway, which really was a safety concern for us. We had people falling and breaking legs when the bricks were tilted. We funded replacing and restoring the historic doors. I currently have a capital improvement program going. We will be redoing the public bathrooms. We have your wonderful funding to redoing the historic steps. So we're fortunate in the library trustees. I have Eva Hamori, who is the chair of our building subcommittee. Eva and I have been looking at the building for a number of years, like what's kind of next. Things like the air conditioning dying was not planned, and so that got addressed first. Now that we've, as Steve Foster says, because Eva and I work closely with Steve Foster as facilities manager, we've done the envelope. We've taken care of the roof, we've taken care of the windows, we're taking care of the doors. We can start looking at some other things. And that's why this project is coming up now, because we feel we've done a lot of those major infrastructure items, many that have been funded by the town, and then others where we've been eligible for your funds.
Do you get grant money? Is it for things like this, or?
We haven't looked for grant money for this specific project. We do look for grant money to run things like summer programs, to add books or add materials.
Okay.
Did Waterfield at all look at the possibility of doing this in phases? Was it 2 phases of construction?
Construction is difficult because there's earthwork where you're doing the leveling and stuff like that. That piece, which is probably the most expensive piece after the with the paving. So we might be able to do some of it in stages, but I think the bulk of it would have to be stage 1 because of the earthwork. So things like the planting and the benches and things like that, those could come in later.
So, Kathleen, is there a reason that you chose Waterfield? And was there ever consideration to get a second quote, have another group look at this space, anything like that?
Under the town purchasing processes, we did have this as an opportunity for other companies to look at. Waterfield was the company that responded. So typically, once we have something like this in place, I haven't taken it back out for a competitive reevaluation. I could ask about doing that.
They've done quite a bit in town.
And I have a lot of immediate experience with the current architect because he's the architect of record for the Historic Steps project that we've been working on for about 5 years. So I was happy to have him be interested in the project because he already came with a lot of knowledge. But we do, on all of our projects, try to get other companies to be interested. This is a huge amount of money in my mind, and yet to many companies, like construction companies, we're a small project and we don't get a lot of interest from lots of other companies, which is unfortunate because it's great to have more than one option.
The stairs.
Well, Waterfield, did they actually build things too, or are they they're just the architects? So
We-
this is like the architect's kind of best guess towards pricing, so.
They use a commercial, that's right, a cost estimator
It's an
company.
estimating program,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so they actually have someone who, that is their profession, as opposed to anybody in the office going, what we think it might be. Professional cost estimator. I knew there's a phrase for what they
Right.
do. So on other projects, that is one of the questions. For instance, like right now, working on the public bathrooms and their renovation, we had a separate company who did the professional cost estimate in addition to the architects, so that we have, you know, as whenever we can, as much professional expertise bringing in the opinions to us, so we have the best possible information when we try to make decisions.
Okay. All right. I think, any other points of concern? I mean, I think I would agree with John that it is I definitely agree it's a big number, it's a big project. When you also look at it, it's, when you have $200,000 worth of contingency in there, that's a lot. So certainly, they're protecting, making sure to protect it. So I think this will definitely be an interesting discussion with the other pieces that come up over the course of the year and figuring out if this is the right year and timing-wise and so forth, so. But I think addressing those points with the DPW and looking at, some ways to bring the cost down are probably, where we're headed. But
Yeah, I
it's
know.
definitely it's definitely a great project and good value for the citizens, so.
One of the things that we've learned with the historic steps re-engineering and rebuilding is that the more years we put something off, the prices are never going to go down for either the labor or the materials. But I am always looking for ways to save money, because if I save the money here, I have the money someplace else for something else that we also need to do. And that's part of an approach we would take to this project.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You get Ron? Okay. Okay. Go with Page Fuller Farm.
That sounds good. I'm Jerome Cooper King.
I'm Sybil. My family's lived at the Page Fuller Farm for 40 years now. We were actually in the middle of this project, and one of our neighbors suggested we come before you. So
Which
we
is
are
why
doing
we're here.
this backwards.
Yes.
We have a
We have a handout. We weren't sure
Sure.
what you guys do. May I? Yeah.
And then we'll scan it in, and it'll be part of the meeting records. That's fine.
We're at 844 Salem Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a small project, but it's construction from the early 1800s, the mid 1900s, and this year. So it's a really neat marriage of things. It's interesting.
One of the things that happened, so this, I guess just a little bit of history on this. This was, the property itself, the house itself was a divided house. It was a two-family house, same family, but first generation on one side, second generation on the other side with their children. And they lived in this house originally, and this house, this outbuilding was built as a summer house, a meeting for both families, a meeting room for both families. Had windows all the way around it, and it was a
Has a root cellar underneath.
Has a root cellar underneath it with 8-foot ceilings in it. It's a remarkable little building. And at some point, it started to, over the years, it's been leaning a little bit. And this winter, we started to take some pictures and formulate a plan of what we wanted to do to get it out to bid to get fixed. And while we were in the process of doing that, we got a snowstorm that was a heavy snowstorm with ice and wind. And after that, it had shifted about 4 inches overnight. And so immediately, we called a contractor to come out and temporarily support it, and basically spent the rest of the winter raking the roof so it wouldn't fall. And I don't know if anybody's, I don't think we had any, I don't think I put any photos in of the temporary supports, but we had temporary supports all the way around it for most of last winter. Well, yeah, the latter part of the winter, I didn't put any of those photos on it.
I spent the year before saying, it will be fine. This building has been here. It will be fine.
So when it came down, we were, as I say, we were trying to get quotes for the work to get done. We went in, we knew a contractor, somebody that we had worked with and done a lot of work with in the past. They came out, helped us with the temporary support, and then said, well, by the way, we can do this work for you too. And they weren't a company that we had put on the bid list.
You know, they moved that house on Salem Street. We tried to get that company. They were not interested.
It was too small of a project. I want to say that was Payne. I forget who that was. We reached out to them first, and it wasn't a big enough project for them. So anyway, so we went through this process. We were pretty specific about everything that we wanted to do with it. It took longer than expected because we were specific. One of Sybil's, one of her thoughts and her ideas was anything that was on the site. We didn't want to bring any new building materials in if we didn't have to.
All the stone is from the property. The windows are from the property.
This is an old house with a lot of history in it. I think there are 5 owners of the house. 4 of them are families. One of them was the person who bought it and divided the property up before.
Can you tell us where exactly in Salem Street it is?
844 Salem Street. It's between Fuller Farm Road and Blue Ridge.
On that side of the street?
Yeah. The original farmhouse and the original farmland, well, it is the original farmhouse, but the original farmland went and extended to Fuller Farm Road. What's that?
Joyce, is this
Joyce Cooper's house.
Okay.
This is her daughter.
Yeah,
Simple.
okay, yeah. Oh, there you go! Oh, it's a small world. Now we know
Yes.
exactly where we are.
Yes.
Yeah,
We moved in during the pandemic
yeah,
to help manage and take care of Joyce.
yeah.
She wanted to come tonight, too. She said, I'll know everybody.
I'll know everybody. So anyway, so we did this work, and somebody passing by while we were in the process of doing this work suggested that we bring it before you folks. And then another gentleman stopped and did a whole review of it. He walked the property with us.
So if it's not appropriate, please tell us. If it is, any suggestions for moving forward?
How do we do this? We're at your mercy. We didn't expect to be here at all. It was not on our watch. We didn't want this building to fall down while we were now caretakers of the property.
Yeah, I was interested when you sent it, and I go by it all the time, and could tell it was a historic house. And I'd just say, like, in general, when we do historic preservation, we always get one, we want to make sure it's has significant value, and that's how we get the historic commission involved. 2, we want to make sure that there's a historic restriction on it so that the, the structure stays intact and true to the, materials and so forth. And 3, I think one of the things that we like to do is make sure that if, public funding is going, there's public access of some sort.
That was the part we didn't, I don't think we figured out yet.
Right, right.
Because
I mean,
of private property.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, so the whole thing is, I think, trying to figure out how that works.
Sure.
Like, if there's a way that, the Historic Society or somebody brings it into part of a curriculum, and you get some documentation and say, like, if you're doing something about, this is how a root cellar would work, if you're doing some sort of thing about, this was,
Yes, understood.
and this is how it goes. So, I think that's part of it, part that we look for as well. So I think it's, I think that's a tricky piece, and I know it's been a tricky piece all over. It's been a tricky piece all over the state in terms of how, I know some towns blanket say we don't do private projects, and other towns have, like Newburyport, have done lots of private homes to maintain the, like, structural integrity and
Right.
views of different
Of course.
things. So I think it's, it's definitely not super straightforward, but it's,
Yeah, I think you actually framed it very well, is that, if most of the projects, with one notable exception that we've done over the years for historical preservation, have all been either town-owned or nonprofit. And when you deal with a private party, it is a little bit more complicated. I mean, I think there's some ways we can deal with that sort of thing. I mean, one of the things that I'd like to see is maybe we have a program where we take an amount of money and we fund individual homeowner projects, but we do it in small amounts, and we ask for some public amenity associated with it, but we don't fund the entire project or something like that. I think something like that feels a better way to deal with that public versus private thing, maybe. But I wanted to ask one other question, and this is, and I'm not doing to be negative about it, but did you say you've already done the work?
Yeah, the work is done.
That's a problem.
The work's done.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like, this is a case of no good deed going unpunished.
See, that's what again, when we were in the middle of the project, we started thinking about
I mean, there
it.
might be a little way to work around it, but we're not supposed to
Yeah,
fund things that are done.
it's
which
done.
is-
They finished it, they started it in the spring and finished it in June, beginning of June.
What's your intent of use of that building?
Right now, it's just we use it as a garden shed.
Yeah.
It's just a big, beautiful garden shed. We don't use the
root cellar.
we don't use the root cellar. We don't,
Yeah.
we didn't put the window back in the root cellar. You can see it in the front of the brick. There was a window there. There was actually 2 there. We didn't put those back in.
I was disappointed about it.
Well,
Were you contacted at all on the rail trail yet?
no.
We had somebody come out about wetlands to make sure that it was appropriately.
When we did the permitting, we had
Sure, right.
somebody come out permit
Well,
for.
I just see the rail bed goes through your property,
It does.
and they're trying to put the bike trail and the path through there. I didn't know if he could talk to Gene and
It's
see if he can
Probably
incorporate.
worth doing, yeah.
It's
anyway, 'cause, yeah.
Nobody's contacted us. It's a weird area that when they
Yeah.
redeveloped, when the developer bought the farm and then developed that area,
Oh, the Blue Ridge, that
well,
developer. yeah, I
that
think
too,
sort of
even,
cut
so
it off.
Blue Ridge sort of cut it off. Once they removed the bridge that went over where Blue Ridge is now, that sort of cut it off. There's no real connection now. Mosquito Brook is in the way.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying. if
Yeah,
you-
no, I mean, yeah.
But
to be a good
nobody-
neighbor, I think
nobody-
They should.
Nobody
do
has,
that.
nobody's
I didn't know if you could
contacted us.
Incorporate the building with the rail trail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
and use it as a place.
I see where
So
you're,
we
yeah,
can
that's a
stop
good
and-
idea,
Yeah.
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 There you go. With that, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I would definitely talk to the historic commission and see what they have to say about the significance and so forth.
Okay.
I would definitely do that, and then I think,
They're making-
again,
making deals all the way down.
it's something we have to, sort of work through, and, maybe it's, and I do know that you can fund a project after the fact, because we did get that
Okay.
legal opinion last year when, remember the Trinitarian Church, they had done work, and we had so we didn't approve that project because of the religious aspect of it and the church-state separation things and court cases in Massachusetts. But we did clear that hurdle when we talked to the attorney and sort of looked through and did the research last year and figured that out. So it's not a complete barrier, but I think, John's point is a good one too, and maybe we could, I would say start with the Historic Commission and come back with the application in February and we can debate it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if you don't put an application in, you have no chance.
Yeah.
Right, well, that's why we're sitting
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
That's
So,
what we
yeah,
thought.
If we could work through it,
Sure.
I commend you for your efforts,
Yeah.
for what you're doing. I mean, it's wonderful to have people that are so dedicated to it, so, we'd like to help out to the extent that we can.
Yeah. And I think about the programming too and see,
That's,
You know,
yeah,
if-
honest to
if-
God, we were hoping you'd have a couple of
Yeah,
ideas. That's why, because we don't have it. And the rail trail connection might be it, might be
Yeah.
one of them.
and,
Gene Enright would be a good starting point for the rail trail connection.
Okay, okay.
and I think, one of the things we did last year with the barn we bought on Johnson Street was we basically said that we was, they're required to allow educational programming to go in there. So it wouldn't be like people just walking through your yard and looking at the
would be
building.
a
but
scheduled
like,
thing.
it'd be a scheduled,
Exactly.
opportunity to take a, a class or a.
Well, and it might
project.
force us to use the, because as I say, right now, it's a shed. It might force us to use it as it was intended, or as it was originally built and, which could be fun. Put a big table out there, a couple of chairs.
Well, thank you.
Interesting.
All right,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Hay scales, why don't we do, Stan, do you want to do yours?
Just a couple of notes. I drive by their house all the time and watched them do that. Got real curious about what they were doing. They did a really good, authentic reconstruction of that structure. They really did a nice job with that. It's very, very authentic in the way that was put together. And great idea, John. How could we fold that into some of our programming? Because we're always looking for farm programming. I mean, that's part of the
The
North
thought
Andover
that I
heritage,
had
right?
is that we, it's a little bit similar. You remember like how we do the thing with the affordable housing where we give them
Yeah.
100,000
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah,
year?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
yeah,
make
yeah,
fun projects. It's that we start like, it's almost like a grant program. I'm making this up, 50,000. And we say to the Historical Society and Historical Commission, what we want to do is to have applicants come in who have historical projects, set up strict criteria.
Right.
And give them 2,000, 5,000 or whatever to, at least, as much as anything else, it's an indication to them that we love what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, it's not gonna
Right.
make a difference in all cases, but it helps.
Sure.
So, something like that, again, why don't we try? We could do it for a little money. If you did it with a little money, there would be no harm in it. We could see if it worked.
Well, and the other thing, of course, we have a list of, let's say, the historic houses in North Andover through various sources, the assessor's office, the book that was written by the Historical Society, the Roper book, has all that information. So, you could actually send out a mailing to the people who own those houses talking about,
Yeah.
here's a program we're trying to get going, and, if you're interested in doing something to your historic house, blah, blah, blah. So you could actually send them a one-time mailing and say, here's the thing, right? And if you're interested. So we have that listed.
And there's a lot of ways to pay it back, like, we don't have like a Christmas walk through the historical
Right,
houses,
right,
but
right,
we
right.
could potentially do something
Sure,
like
yeah,
that,
there's
tie
lots of ways to do
together,
it. Yeah, they could, you could have a house tour. We've done that in the past, the
Yeah.
Historical Society.
Yeah.
We haven't done it in a while, but we could do that. And those houses could all be on the historical tour, right,
Yeah.
for things. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's all good ideas. So the other thing I wanted to say, my understanding of the current design for the rail trail ends at Marble Ridge. It goes that far because the titles and property is easier from there back to the lake. From there forward, it gets real complicated. So they at least are going to try to get that far, right to that bridge on Marble Ridge, that old bridge. So, okay. So this project is the Hayscales building, the real Hayscales building, not the Hayscales Exchange. It's the one at the corner of Osgood and Andover, right? And it is, in fact, a scale that was used historically to weigh hay for farmers, to get paid. And we have not had much luck in being able to effectively maintain the building. The building is getting progressively more deteriorated, and we'd like to now start to really use it in some of our educational programming, because it's a great example of what agriculture was like, in the mid, from the early 19th century to through the end of the 19th century. So we'd like to get these funds to do quite a bit of exterior maintenance, some siding, some trim work, and then, of course, paint. And then we also need to do some interior work, some deterioration on the inside. And we'd like to see if we can do something a little bit to sort of clean up the scale platform itself, so we can use it as part of sort of the educational activity to show this is the scale. As far as we know, it actually still has the linkage from the platform to the indicators inside. So I don't know, we can sort of explore that. Maybe it works. Who knows, right? So, stand a bunch of school kids on it might weigh them. I don't know. So that's our intent in this project. And we really feel like it's a kind of an important part of our agricultural heritage, and I'd like to make sure that we try to preserve it and use it. Our intent is to use it. We have used it some, but would like to use it even more. And if it was in better shape, we could do that. And, we would add some interior signage and things inside that we could use for school kids.
Didn't we fund a project to do exactly that about 15 years ago?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Well, we did.
Which, what happened, I guess?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it was there. My little exploring of trying to update the website, that was definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's 15 years later and things get run down, right? So,
And at that point, they were gonna fix the scale too.
how much was allocated for the project?
Ooh, couldn't tell you, standing off the top of my head. I'd have to go back.
I think it was like around 10,000, but I don't remember. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a little either.
We talked about putting some type of an alarm system in the building also, and there was, the problem with it would have to be battery operated, and they said that the cold was gonna affect the battery, but we were gonna, there was a plan to connect it somehow
Okay.
to one of the other buildings, because we
Yeah.
thought whatever we funded, we were afraid that that building was very susceptible to somebody breaking into, and,
Right,
nobody
right,
would
right,
know.
right.
So we wanted some type of protection on the building, and that was part of it also. So all of that was
Interesting,
back a while ago.
interesting, okay.
$50,000, that's just a ROM, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, $7,695 in 2011.
And what was it for, just rehab?
Yep. That's phase 2, so there must have been a phase 1 at some point. Let's see.
So that's before my time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always think about, like, what's better for these buildings? Do you need at some point to bring electricity in, and sort of, does that help them, maintain temperature and sort of last longer?
Yeah,
Or is it?
I certainly wouldn't disagree with that. I don't know exactly in that particular.
There was electricity on that building, it got ripped off
Really?
somehow, and they didn't want to put it back on, but I think that
Is the service still there?
I think there's still a pipe on the building.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So there could be, it's underground supply
I
there
don't,
that's,
I don't know if it came overhead or,
oh, okay. Yeah, well, there's not, there's no overhead there.
No,
There
there's
would
no
be
overhead there.
yeah.
conduit from something. I don't know where.
So maybe when they put it under, they just never hooked that building back
Oh,
up.
maybe, yeah, that'd be interesting, we could look into that. And then, then you could do like the alarm thing, if you had electricity in the building,
Yeah.
right? We could have a wireless alarm in there, as long as we had power, right?
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah, we can, that'd be interesting, yeah. Because, I'm with you, we don't want people breaking in the building.
Right.
We haven't had that problem, but,
No.
we could, right, and so,
It only takes once,
Yeah.
and then we lose, it only takes once and we lose
yeah,
it.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. So-
So Stan, how many square feet, excuse me, how many square feet is it?
It's pretty small, it's like 10 by 10,
Yep.
small building.
And so what do you foresee as its use?
Oh, we use it for educational purposes.
Right.
We have educational programs. We take school kids over there and, talk about, the town's agricultural heritage, and, other things related to that. How that was used, what they did with it, how farmers, interacted with that. So that's what we do.
With what sort of regularity does that work out?
We would like to do more of it, and if we had it a little bit more fixed up, and felt a little more comfortable with it, we'd probably do it more often. We have maybe between 15 and 20 classes come in over a period of time. So, that would be, a lot of them can walk from, like Franklin or Kittredge or someplace, and, that's an easy walk over there across the common to go over there and take a look at that if they're coming to us anyway, so.
I was just reading about the building on your website here. Is there anything else that you'd want to point out in terms of its historic nature besides of the fact that it's old?
Well, it's a unique structure in our town, and I don't, I'm sure many towns had them, but, to the idea of having scales that were used for commerce, right, in a town that was sort of like a public function, right? That was kind of a public utility in the day, right? And, people would use it to, do their business, right, to buy and sell things, right?
Okay, clear.
So I just think, two things.
Go ahead.
One, if you could find out from somebody in the past, what was done there? Did they
Okay.
look at the scales?
Okay.
Was any of that done? And
Okay.
if we could look into the utilities, if that's a possibility,
Yeah, that's interesting. If there is electricity
it was.
that,
yeah.
that came to the building and now it's not
So if
being
it's
used or
underground, we
something.
can just pull in a new
Okay,
service.
I'll check that out, yeah.
Stan, if there was electricity, could you feasibly see more use out of the building? I mean, could then you use it in the
Not
winter?
specifically. The only thing I can think is that Terry's point about alarming the building, right?
Right,
If we
that's
had power and not have to do the battery thing and all of that,
I'm more concerned with fire alarm.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Yeah, and we've, we, as you all recall, we put a pretty fancy alarm system in the barn when you gave us that money, right?
I
So
think
we've
that's
got
terrific.
a very good sprinkler system and a good alarm system in that building, so
Right.
it's not gonna burn down real soon.
Yeah.
We're good to go on that thing, so.
Because it almost burnt down once, right?
Yeah, it did, yeah, almost. Yeah, they were probably doing something in there that they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
They probably had a wood stove or something, that
Yeah.
caught on fire, so, anyway. Do you want me to do the other one?
Sure.
Okay, this is the building that's at the end of Johnson Cottage, right? It's a large masonry building, a brick building, and in its original form, it was red brick. That's the way that started out, and it was that way for a number of years. For whatever reason, it got painted. That's lost in history. And we'd like to restore it to its original look, to make it sort of match the way it we have many photos of it as a red brick building, but of course nobody's ever seen that. So this would be a project to strip the paint off the building and try to return it to its original state. Because of the nature of the building, its historic nature, that probably would have to be a chemical process. You can't sandblast it or something, you can't do that. So it's some chemical process, so that's more involved, and takes more time and costs more money. But we'd want to be gentle with it. And then we're assuming that once we finish the stripping process, we'd have to go through and probably repoint all the brick, after all of that, because the thing that's probably holding a lot of that together is the paint at this point. So, it's a project. To your point, Bill, this is again a not to exceed. I haven't really been able to get a good estimate for this work.
They say $20 a square foot to remove the paint from brick.
Oh, yeah.
No.
So,
Has it been tested for lead?
what's that?
The paint,
Yeah.
has it been tested for lead?
It has not been, so that's another thing. The company I've been trying to talk to, is a lead paint remover type organization, so they know how to do that. So I need to get an estimate, but if it's even close to the 250, I'd say let's not do it, right? We'll leave it painted, and I'm okay with that. But, I need to get an estimate, a solid estimate from somebody to see what it would cost to do that.
Would you anticipate that your 250 also included the repointing?
Yes, yes. If it doesn't, then we're not going to spend any more money on, we wouldn't want to spend any more money than that.
Do you have any idea what the condition of the brick is?
We don't really know. I mean, it's been,
So you may actually find out you might need to replace some brick as well.
Yeah, we would certainly want to do some testing, right? And strip a bit off and look at
Yeah.
what it looks like. And if it's a mess, then, we're just not going to do that. It's useful, but not necessary, right? So,
Yep.
so that's kind of that. So that's sort of where we're at on that. So we, again, think of this as kind of a placeholder, and once we get more information, and get closer to the submission time, we'll decide what to do. And, if it's any more money than this, we're not doing it. It's not worth it really to spend a lot more than this, so.
And Stan,
That's-
you said you don't know why it was painted. Do you know when?
No idea, but it was, decades ago. It's been painted for a
Probably
long.
lead, which doesn't matter on the stripping. I just know that from, I just dealt with this recently. So, it doesn't matter. But what happens is the longer you leave it on, the brick can't breathe.
Yeah.
And it does start to deteriorate the brick.
No, it doesn't.
And the mortar.
Yeah.
That's a problem when they said why people ever did it, who knew? But it does actually hurt the brick and the mortar by having paint on it.
Traps
Yeah.
in the moisture.
I believe that. So anyway, it's maybe not a high probability we're going to end up doing this. We'd want to do some testing even if we got some money before we do anything, because we don't want to have to.
Yeah, whoever you get to give for an estimate probably will have to do some
Yeah,
testing to be
yeah.
able to give you an accurate estimate.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Okay?
No, I mean, I think along those lines, as we go through, we spend a lot of time, Zach, who helps us with a lot of the administration, we've been reaching out to people and trying to go back, and sometimes we're going back 7, 8 years to look at projects, and sometimes funds have been spent, and you're very good at, you in particular, Stan, are very good about updating us. But I think sometimes it's we would like to see the projects move, rather quickly. And if it's it's going to take us 3 years to find a contractor, and, I know it's a little bit of a chicken and egg, you need funding to be able to, engage a contractor. But, I would encourage you to sort of go out and see how much diligence you can get done
Oh, yeah,
before
yeah.
you come back and
Of
and
course.
have a little bit
course.
better so
Of course.
that
Yeah, I
it
was just,
doesn't drag on.
I was pressed for time, right?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I've been trying to, I don't know, for some reason, I haven't been able to get a vendor to respond to my calls, so that's a problem too. You can't force them to come and give you a bid, so. So, yeah, no, yes, I am in complete agreement with that. So, the one thing that, I always try to remind myself is these are not to exceeds, right?
Yeah.
It's only what we spend that we get paid for, right?
Right.
So again, back to, the library project, even though there's a 20% contingency in there, if she does it for 660, you only pay for 660,
Right.
right? You don't pay
right.
880 or whatever.
Yeah,
You
I
pay
think
for
that-
what they spend, right?
Yeah, I think the situation that we run into sometimes is, I think it's 250. They came out and they said it's 450. So now I gotta wait a whole nother cycle and reapply.
correct.
And that's when it gets like, then it's like,
Well, that's exactly what happened with the stairs, as you
Yeah.
know, because we came back for a supplemental.
Yeah.
Because the price went up so much, we couldn't do it with what we got originally, so.
Budget
just-
contingencies are wise,
yeah,
especially today.
right.
I wonder what that Kittredge school is gonna cost by the time we get there. Whew,
I know.
interesting.
If only we'd borrowed money when money was free.
Yeah. When interest rates were zero, right? All righty, thanks.
Thank you.
It's tough to borrow money on
I
a
will
rainy
say,
day.
though, it's a little embarrassing to come here and present a project and have you guys go, didn't we do that for you guys? That's a little embarrassing, I gotta say. So I wonder how, so as you're getting, Zach, to look through the records, if you find any more, and I try this again, have him call me up and say, we already paid you for that, don't try that again. Double dipping doesn't work here, right? So-
Keep you honest.
Yeah. That's a little embarrassing. Didn't we already pay you for that?
Okay, all right, North Parish. Okay. Very good. Hello.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time, and Zach, thank you. Yeah, so I wasn't really quite sure what we were going to do here because I've not done this before. But so I'm Stephanie Harrington. I'm a member of North Parish, and this is Gary Martin. He's a member as well. We're both volunteers. Gary's been volunteering on the project management of this project, and I'm volunteering on the grant management process. So we are, we're happy to discuss this project, and I think I think everybody must know where the site, this our iconic New England meeting house, Gothic sort of revival style that sort of looms over the entire old North Andover Center. I mean, someone said it's our Notre Dame, right? It's not just North Parish. It's an entity of its own because it's just so well recognized, so old, and so much a part of North Andover's heritage. So we're here to, sort of talk. We are kind of in a ready-to-go position, I think, right, Gary? Maybe you can.
Well, the project was to two things. One, when we originally started, we were thinking of making the building more energy efficient. There's no insulation in the walls, and it's fairly drafty, so it cost a lot of money to keep it heated, and there's no cooling in the summer, so we don't hold services in the main part of the building in the summer, but in the addition where there is air conditioning. So one of the original thoughts was to add insulation, make it much more energy efficient, and that's where we got started. But then we realized that doesn't make any sense with the condition of the building and some of the leaks that exist. There's a hole in at least one of the spires where water comes through it all the way to the basement, and we have peeling paint on a basement wall from a leak at one of the spires. Above the organ area at the front of the building, there's water getting in on somewhere in the front wall or the bell tower that's has caused one of the ceilings, well, the ceiling by the organ is starting to bend down. I heard, I think the Trinitarian Church had something that may have been similar to this. So the project was going to be fairly expensive to do all the insulation and what we were planning to do. But then we found out there's a lot of renovation that needs to be done. It became a much bigger project. And a few years ago, an organization called the Friends of the Meeting House was set up as a vehicle where people not directly associated with the church, but who lived in the area and wanted to see that beautiful building stay there in good condition, set up a separate nonprofit just to help fund projects like this to preserve the church. And it is that organization, and we're speaking for them because we use the building all the time and are most interested in having it usable. That organization is asking for grant money to add to the money that they're putting in to help do this large renovation project. And as far as where the project is, the first thing we have to do is get approval with the Old Center District Commission and the North Andover District Commission, the historical district commissions. Both of them have to approve the project. And we've met with one of them, and the Old Center one was kind of inactive for the last few months because they had a change in chairs. And it looks like we're going to be able to meet with them after the first of the year. So if we get approval from them, and they may request some changes of what we're planning to do, but if we get approval from them, we hope to start work in the summer, which will involve replacing the spires. All of the spires are not in good condition, some of them worse than others. And re-siding two sides of the building because there's a lot of rot on the building, painting the whole exterior, and in the process of doing that, when the old siding's taken off, we plan to insulate the building and make it a much more energy efficient building. So that's our plan, and that's why we're asking for help in doing the renovation part of the work.
And there's also the finials, which are on top of the spires, so, I
Yes.
mean, so beautiful, but they have to be replaced, rebuilt. So we have our quotes also. We have quotes for that, and then we have quotes for the majority of the renovation work. And it's, so I think, we would, because the preliminary application didn't seem to really want too much, I didn't put it in there, but, certainly we've got those. So Gary's, really sort of like, understanding the project. He's already talked, with the contractors who we got the quotes from to really sort of understand what's going on there. I mean, there's a lot. And it is sad to see, we had the Red Bow Fair last weekend, and it is sad to see all of the leakage, and which, we all know, as property owners, you don't want to let that go, and it's an expensive project, as you can imagine. The church is on the National Historic Register, and I also wanted to say, so the Friends of the 1836 Meeting House, we have a website, and it's got great information about the historic significance of the church, because it's got, one of the last remaining Paul Revere bells in the steeple. I'm not sure what was going on back then, but we also have silver, the Revere silver, which is in the MFA. So, it goes way back. We we have a lot of outreach that happens at the church. We have Al-Anon, NA, AA, let me make sure, we have the Essex Chamber Music Choral Society. We have McVegley, which is, a meeting that happens with gay, lesbian, transgender youth. They meet monthly. We have the food pantry that has done a lot with the food scarce, with people's food scarcity since the pandemic, and still, I mean, that organization has grown so much because of the need here. We have the Crossroads Music Series that happens monthly, and that brings in a lot of outside people. I mean, I was there on Saturday. We had a great concert, and it was mostly people I didn't know. So we always really love to bring people into the church. And we have the Great Pond Sangha Buddhist meditation group. We do a lot of Bread and Roses meal preparation, Merrimack Valley People for Peace, and the Community Inroads organization, which helps other nonprofits and provides technical assistance to nonprofits in the Merrimack Valley.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, we all the pieces are in place, I would say, and like certainly know like how much goes on in that building. I think the number one thing, I think this is like really a legal question due to the decisions that came down from the Supreme Judicial Court, basically limiting the amount, limiting, how much public funds can be used to support buildings where the religious activities go on. And so, it's a pretty tough test, and I would say, like, I will forward to you and to the rest of the committee the opinion that our former town council wrote a few years ago, because we have had, we've had the Trinitarian Church, we've had the Episcopalian Church have all come to us for funds, and we've been in a very tough spot, because one of the tests even says, like, it's kind of, obviously, like, we can't go in and replace, like, iconography, right? Like, that's clearly, like, a religious purpose. But then one of the tests says, if you're spending money, if the public is coming in and spending money that the church otherwise would have spent, and therefore can spend their money on other religious activities, that's part of the test too. So, I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's very difficult, and I think, one of the things that's been tossed around a little bit is, let's just say, you were fixing the building, there already is a historic preservation in there, but if the historic preservation aspect is kind of like a delta, like you have to spend an extra $100,000 to make it, comply with the historic, nature and that sort of specialty thing, that there might be some room there. But, it's really, I think it's a really difficult thing overall in the state of Massachusetts, because, there are a lot of historic, churches, and they do require, considerable upkeep, and it is a lot, and there's no way around the historic importance of North Parish, to the town, like, certainly. So I think, what town council has suggested is that, we'll forward that on, and that you should have someone take a look at that and say, like, okay, here's the three-part test in the, what's called the Acton case. and here's how, here's what aspects of this work, are kind of acceptable under the Acton test. I think that's, to me, that's the whole part of it. Like, just, is it legal under Massachusetts state law? And can,
Which
and can
student
be
does it
funded.
pass the test?
Mhm.
So it's, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You've got to look at, what's being proposed. So I should also, we have, so the budget is about $750,000 for just these items, which are mostly preservation. We have raised $300,000 from members of the church, and
Which we originally thought was going to be enough to cover the insulation part of it, but it's much
yeah,
bigger.
It's much bigger than that. So I think that, we're happy to, have, work with you on the budget, and so that we can sort of look at what could be covered. But, I think, all churches are having a tough time after the pandemic. And this has always been a building that we've had to maintain, and for the most part, we have. But this is, just getting, and it's expensive now, too. I think we all, we know how expensive things are.
So, Stephanie, the project is replacing the spires, residing 2 sides of the building, painting the entire exterior. You mentioned the insulation. Is that it? Is there anything else I'm missing?
Also, as part of the energy efficiency work, we wanted to add storm shutters on the windows. The windows are very large. They're single pane old windows, not energy efficient. So we wanted to add, and that was over $100,000 by itself.
Wow. Is mass save a possibility for you all?
There are parts that could be, but we did have Mass Save come out, and the person from Mass Save who came out said he did not want to work on the historic building because the inside has this large plaster wall, and he was afraid that he would damage it in the process of putting in insulation, so we didn't, that was what we got from Mass Save.
Was that a contractor with Mass Save or someone from the
Well,
actual
it's
from the
someone
actual
that
program?
Mass Save sent.
Yeah.
They
initially send someone out to
Yes.
examine the property and
Right.
then decide whether or not you're eligible for the program. And
Yes.
their analysis was that you weren't eligible, or
well,
that
his
they were-
analysis was that it was too risky, that what, he recommended that we not do it, because,
Probably because of the blown-in insulation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Concern with the
Yes.
plaster failing.
right. So what the quote that we got was, rather than blowing in insulation because of that very concern, is that when the siding's taken off, they will hand put in insulation
Right.
before putting the siding back on. You had mentioned things we would have to do because of the historic nature of the building that we otherwise wouldn't do. And one of the things that's before the Historic Commission right now is for the spires, which are very high up and are in some of the worst condition of anything there. We wanted to replace those with some permanent material, maybe some kind of, I don't know, plastic or whatever, and then they'd be painted so from the ground you couldn't tell any difference, but they were concerned, and we haven't gotten a ruling yet. We're hoping that will be allowed, but it may be that we have to recarve the stuff that's up there in wood as it was originally.
And either way, it has to be done,
Yeah.
and soon.
I mean, I think that, I love what you're trying to do. The bar that Bill talked about is a pretty high bar. So I think you have to look at it very carefully, and I think the way to deal with it is, can you separate parts of the project from the worship activity, the religious activity, keep it as far separate and make an argument to that extent? The other thing is that we did when we funded the project, I think it was like 15 years ago, before the Acton decision, is we did get a preservation restriction. So if we ever end up doing something, we want to do that sort of similar thing this time around, so.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have two commissions to go for, get approval from, as the result of that 15 years ago, or whatever.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Well, I'll forward that over, and it'll give you a place to start with your analysis of the project and try to figure out, how to do that. So.
Yeah. And I did speak with Christina O'Connor, and she said, she actually sent me a lot of good information about the 3 tests, and I read it thoroughly, the decisions, the Acton decision, and so, I mean, I feel like, we do meet a lot of those tests, because we don't have religious iconography, there's no crosses, there's no stained glass windows there are no religious themed stained glass windows. It's, so, I do, we're, very much willing to sort of like look at those tests and sort of get, if,
One thing you might want to do is get in touch with Stuart Saganor from the Community Preservation Coalition. Because he's the advocacy agency for CPC, and I think he understands this probably better than just about anybody. And they're in Boston, but he's from Boxford, so he could actually come over if you wanted.
Okay. Now, he's in which organization is he from?
It's the Community Preservation Coalition. I think it's .org. I think that's it. But if you look that up, you can get that. And I could I'll send them a note, just saying that you might contact them. Okay. So. Yeah.
So would you want to see that sort of an analysis in the application?
Right. Yeah, we would.
Okay.
I think town council's recommendation is kind of like it's as the applicant, it's your affirmative obligation to prove that this is legal, so that we're not lawyers.
His website is Community Preservation, all one word, .org.
Communitypreservation.org. Okay.
And he is extremely helpful.
Yeah. I emailed him already, so he's already, yeah.
Okay. Oh, that'd be helpful.
I think it would be helpful for you that you have approximately 40% of the budget done with external funds. So you could take the criteria and sort of parse out the project and say, okay, what is associated with worship and what is not, cover the things associated with worship under the $300,000 you've already raised, and parcel out the other ones with the potential community preservation funds.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think putting in the installation, that really is worship related, because it's going to benefit anybody that goes to the church for any purpose. So that would be hard to differentiate. But some of the other ones, you can make the argument the spires have nothing to do with that. I mean, directly. 150 years ago they did, but not today. So,
Is the budget blown out of the water if you have to use original material for the spires?
Well, I don't have a quote for it. I know it's going to be a lot more
Your quote right
expensive.
now assumes,
Yes.
okay.
But there's a lot more years, using the material than wood. And I think that's.
Oh, yeah, it'll last a lot longer.
Oh, absolutely,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
there are
that's why
some,
we-
there are some
we
restrictions in
don't
that
wanna
area
do it
too,
again,
so we're,
yes.
yep.
Well, thank you very
Great,
much.
Hey, thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, that's, I believe that's all the notice of intent applicants were here. So we're all set to move on. Update on CPC financials, and then we'll close some projects. I think the headline here is that we have about $17 million on hand. Obviously, we have a big commitment to the middle school field project. That's our big sort of outstanding item. But
I provided an update.
yeah,
Not much of an update.
so you have an update?
I did, I provided Zach with
Oh, good. Okay.
one. Nothing's really changed.
Yeah. So, so that's, kind of where we stand as we start the fiscal year, and then, we anticipate somewhere around 3 million, give or take, of new funds. Okay. So we'll move on to the memo about closed projects. Does everyone have that? Zach prepared this, and we did the significant legwork of going out and talking to all the project applicants. And it looks like we can close a number of we can close 9 projects. And so I'll read off the projects, and if we could vote as a group, would that be acceptable? Okay, so I'll read off the projects, then we'll have a motion, and we'll go from there. So the 9 projects where we've concluded that the projects are finished, and we don't need any further disbursements from them, therefore they can be closed and go back to the general fund, are the Bradstreet School Memorial, number 1384, the North Andover Historical Society Building, number 1326, Lake Kachikawick Boat Ramp, number 1384, Wire Hill Trail Fencing, 1393, Playground Master Plan 2020, 1372, Playground Master Plan 2021, 1377, Senior Housing Refurbishment, 1347, Stevens Memorial Library Masonry Refurbishment, 1358, and McAvoy Field Phase 2, 1333. Do I have any motion relative to those 9 projects?
Motion to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we knocked out 9, so that's good. And we'll keep moving along on those. I did have something in there for new business. Any new business?
No, I thought this was a good discussion tonight. I'm
Yeah.
really glad you got all these people in. I think it was pretty helpful. Yeah.
Are there more projects than these?
The town has a number of projects.
Yep.
So definitely and they've already submitted some applications.
I believe some more are coming.
Yeah, so definitely like the stables, right? Is that what we're calling? That's what we're calling what we used to call the carriage house. So the stables are coming. That application is done. It's in. I glanced at it, but it's definitely a lot of detail. These are the up at the Stevens Estate. There's there's the Stevens Estate building, and then back in the rear there's a stable which has been kind of a thorn in our side for 15 years.
Is that a Steve Foster project?
Yeah, I think so.
He's sort of point person.
And then the gazebo, for
It's more
Yeah,
than a
okay.
gazebo, it's actually music.
It's a
venue.
stage.
Band
Stage.
Band
Band
stage.
stage.
Yeah, so I know we got that coming. I have not heard, I was hoping, I know Tracy got stuck at work, but I'm hoping that the Housing Authority comes with something this year. That would be good.
So that was going to be my question, actually. It seems, obviously, we're sort of beholden to whoever kind of comes before us. Is there anything that we can do as a body to be more proactive? I think, it sounds like we have a lot of presentations tonight about, largely community preservation, historic projects, right? I don't know if we have anything down the line in terms of recreation and open space and affordable housing. Is there anything we can do as a group to be?
We may have. I'm not going to speak out of turn,
Okay.
but there may be some coming in.
So yeah, we have a lot of stakeholders. So I would say like the Housing Authority is a big stakeholder for affordable housing, and then the Affordable Housing Trust. We've been allocating to them every year, regardless of whether or not they have an actual project, and then they can use the money. It's kind of good because if someone wanted to, sometimes houses come up, and the Affordable Housing Trust can work with like Bread and Roses, like the local nonprofit, to like buy a house and make it an affordable unit, and it's helpful because we only get funding once a year at town meeting. So if it's you have to go through this whole process, vet all the projects, and then it comes up in May. But that's not kind of how real estate works. So things come up during the year, and then the Affordable Housing Trust has more flexibility than we do, and they can step in and sort of do that. And then if it's sometimes they've come back to us if it's a larger project, maybe they're able to start it and then come to us and so we've worked with them pretty well. And then I would say obviously the Fields Committee work very closely with.
Rick and Terry, you guys know everything that's going
Yeah.
on with recreation.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the batting cage set up? Yeah, I know
I
you've been
haven't.
waiting for me to help you out there.
I have it partially demolished. It'll be fully demolished between Christmas and New Year's, and we're a little tight on funds right now, so probably will not get some of it done. It'll be ready for probably the beginning of the season.
Okay.
I will call you, Tim, though.
Okay. I've been waiting.
And then
We're going to see some continuations of projects
And-
eventually
Yeah.
in the program.
I think in open space, there's a lot of activity going on there,
Yeah.
because we have open space committee, we have an open space plan. We also partner with a couple nonprofits who have worked deep in the background with landowners. It's no surprise we know what open space is left. And, so I feel like I think most people that have an interest can. I think the kind of thing we miss is like the people on Salem Street. That's those little historical properties. That's probably where we might be able to elicit a little bit more from.
Well, if that is successful moving forward, that's going to be interesting PR for other people. Like, oh shoot, I've got a 1790 barn kind of thing, and needs some work, and yeah.
there are
I'm
a lot
serious.
of barns. There are a fair number of I gotta think of 4 or 5 barns that I ride by on my bike, that
Yeah.
that you see kind of
Yeah.
out in back of the houses somewhere.
Yeah.
So at least one or two on Great Pond Road. Sure.
Can I ask a question about signs?
Yes. Yeah.
So let me just use my 2 projects, right? So if we did the bricks, that would obviously get a sign, right? Funds provided by. But the other, would we do that on the hay skills too? Is that in an appropriate location, or a little sign or something?
In fact, I think is there a sign there already? I'm trying to remember. Is
There
a sign-
is,
a sign
there are
there?
some signs on the building, but I'm just trying to,
Those
because,
we came up with kind of sign designs.
Okay.
Concepts for each of the different.
yeah, I don't have any the
Project.
only other project we have is one that you already funded last year, which was doing some, artifact restoration. I'm not quite sure that that deserves a sign in front of the building because we're doing.
No, I think,
You know,
I
I'm
think
just saying.
what we're trying to do, like, I think one of the big, things we'd like to do is to make it
PR.
more visible to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
town.
no,
No
no.
question.
When we're spending, that their,
I agree.
that their funds are
I
project
agree.
that. And I think the sign, like, it's a proportionality question, right?
Yes,
So it's like,
yes.
if you went to a museum, right, and like Stan Limpert had donated a picture to the museum, your name would be there, donated by Stan Limpert. So we're saying like, 8 by
Yeah.
11, like a little plaque.
Yeah.
With
No,
a-
The sign
you know.
would be appropriate for the
Yeah,
building, the
but,
structure of the project.
you know, I mean, the brick project should deserve a big sign, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a big deal. So that would, I get that. Yeah, I was just wondering about that, and that's a good answer. It's like, if it's proportional to the project, then we're good, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, any
I
opportunity
think
to put a
you just
sign
want to
up.
have some recognition that.
Yeah, no, I
we
think
could
it's
do
good.
it.
I mean, because that's, to the point of getting people to understand that there is this thing.
Yep.
Maybe somebody then would ask about it, another time, right? What is that?
Okay. And then we have,
We don't have minutes for that, so.
yeah,
did,
we have meetings
but
from
those aren't official
October
meetings.
12th.
Yeah,
We didn't have a meeting on,
no, not an official one.
I don't think there's something you can vote on.
no. we
No,
can't.
no.
Okay, so everyone except Adam was here at the meeting on October 12th. Any questions on that?
So is it a motion to approve the minutes? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
moved, yeah.
Motion to approve minutes of October 12th, 2023 is written.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
You got Adam seconding.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.